This week on Arizona Illustrated, speaking up, why it matters.
We would love students to have such a great self-esteem that there's no need for harassment and bullying, that they're accepting of everyone.
The middleman delivering local produce.
I think what you're tasting is their hard work and their compassion.
Plant life, growing your own.
It's a lover of our desert climate, just a workhorse in a flower garden.
And the other desert museum. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. In the United States, the suicide rate among kids between the ages of 10 and 14 has doubled in the past decade. Children that age are now more likely to die by suicide than in a car accident. Inside and outside the classroom, challenges like drug addiction, bullying, and depression are putting more and more pressure on this generation of young people. In all of this, words matter. And with that in mind, 3 women from different walks of life have joined forces to ask students to speak up when they see someone in crisis or when they themselves need help.
No one will ever think you're beautiful.
Go kill yourself.
How do you put up with yourself?
You're so ugly and disgusting.
Yeah, you guys better lay off her. Looks like she's gonna cry over there.
She's a mess.
Stop begging for attention, jeez.
Don't come to school if you're just going to cry.
Helpless.
You're helpless.
You're helpless.
Helpless.
Normal. I'm glad I'm not you.
I'm glad I'm not you.
Glad I'm not you.
I'm glad I'm not you.
What we say has the power to give life, or it has the power to give death. So I want to talk about that for a little bit this morning, and I want to challenge you to really ask yourself, what type of human are you going to be?
That question might seem a little heavy for teens, but this isn't just another school assembly. It's Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life, a conference that brings thousands of middle and high schoolers together for a 6-hour conversation about the toughest problems they face.
In the next 24 hours, 15,016 will use drugs and alcohol for the first time.
Excessive drinking is responsible for more than 4,300 deaths among underage youth each year.
In the next 24 hours, in the next, in the next, in the next.
How can we change this?
Mental illness, drug and alcohol use, cyberbullying, self-harm, and suicide are all up for discussion. The idea is to inspire young people to speak out about the pain and pressure in their lives. And it started when 3 women, a school superintendent, a business development manager, and a county prosecutor, happened to cross paths in a community leadership class in Phoenix's West Valley.
Class 22, and that's a big rivalry thing, right? So they're in their 24th class right now, but we're the class 22, we're the best, and you all have your own secret handshakes. I met Gina and Lily, and it was like we just were magnets to each other.
Well, I think we're all type A personality, so it was like the perfect match for the 3 of us to come together.
It's interesting because we're 3 generations almost. We're about a 10-year difference between all of us. We're all parents, we're mothers. When you talk about these issues, it's close to all of our hearts, and that instantly allowed us to connect as well.
And so the seating that you gave us on that original chart, where that's like the exact number of seats, right? Because I think that's how we highlighted.
The catalyst for the conference was a class conversation with local law enforcement.
One of the things that had just happened was a murder-suicide on a West Valley campus. And Gina was the assigned prosecuting attorney to the case, and she asked him, she said, you know, there are threats that we see on social media. Why aren't you guys seeing this? And he goes, why aren't you seeing it?
When we were discussing that, Dr. Lily DeBlue said, we tell kids to speak up, but they just don't. And we thought, well, you know what? Why don't we hold a conference? And that kind of started a conversation where we have to do a project anyway. Let's hold a conference and see if we can inspire kids and get them to speak up. We knew that for it to be successful, it had to come from the youth, because the youth are going to be the first ones to notice that their classmates are in trouble. They're going to be the ones to notice the warning signs because they're talking in their own code. So we have to engage the kids, and we have to get the kids the courage to speak up. But then on the same token, you had to get the parents and the teachers on the same page, because if they speak up and you're not ready to respond, they may never speak up again.
Without any event planning experience, the trio set out to design a conference that would engage students and get them talking, while also providing resources for their teachers and parents.
We did emails, I did calls, I did flyers. I just spoke to as many people who would listen and say, let me tell you what's going on, I'd love to invite you. Now the first year, yes, we had a lot of schools and districts that we're not interested. You know, and some people said, it's a touchy subject.
Despite that resistance, the word spread and interest grew, and about 900 students took part in the very first Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life conference in 2017. Grace Martinez was there to share her own story of recovery after years of intense bullying led her into depression and self-harm.
Cutting made me numb to a world that at the time I saw as gray, lifeless, and bleak. Instead of feeling the pain they gave me, I wanted to feel a different kind of pain. And that's how I coped with it. I made my own pain. What inspired me to share my story was that there is a lot of people like me, and most people don't make it out like I did. There are young girls like 10 or 9 years old that are taking their lives because people don't have anything nice to say.
This year, 16-year-old Grace shared her story again. Words once hurt her deeply, but now she uses them to heal and to encourage others to speak.
My name is Grace, and my story is just beginning, because I care enough to speak up, stand up, and save a life.
The second Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life conference drew 3,500 students from all over Arizona. They spent the day hearing from fellow students, motivational speakers, and performers who played out common and painful scenarios.
Is there anybody that I could talk to?
Then they worked in small groups to identify problems and potential solutions in their own schools.
Their expressions on their faces.
Their job is to be ambassadors, and this is a train the trainer. So they're going to roll out this message to their school. So we have a chance to impact 350,000 youth.
Then the word gets out. Then kids start talking to other kids saying, oh my God, that was absolutely fabulous. Look what I can do now. Then they start implementing. Then parents get the information and say, wow, I don't know what you did there, but look at how my child is reacting. We had adults crying on my shoulder, saying I needed this.
First-time attendees Maya Nora and Emma Romero say the conference helped them put their experiences into a different perspective.
It just kind of opened my eyes to how to help bullying, and like kind of just saying like if it happened to me, what would I do? So I really just took that into consideration.
I know a lot of people that have been bullied and stuff, so it just was like, it was a powerful message.
Thank you so much. Now we want to tell you really quick before you get up, start talking about your project. Use this time wisely while you're pumped up.
Jennifer, Gina, and Lily hope to bring that message to communities throughout Arizona and beyond.
Our goal is hopefully that this will go nationwide. We would love to eliminate this bullying, this cutting. We would love students to have such a great self-esteem that there's no need for harassment and bullying, that they're accepting of everyone, and that they're willing to lend a hand to their fellow students. That's what needs to happen.
If more people got with their friends and their coworkers and their thought groups and said, let's think of a solution. What can we do together with our network of people and make some energy around something positive? Imagine what this world would be.
Speak up, stand up, save a life.
Speak up, stand up, save a life.
Nowadays, we hear phrases like local food movement and farm to table, but what does it all mean? Well, last spring, we caught up with one local entrepreneur who has taken matters into his own hands. He's connecting Southern Arizona farmers and growers with some of the best chefs in Tucson. Here is the Middleman.
I grew up in dairyland. We grow soybeans and cows. I'm not a farmer. I was historically really poor farmer when I lived on my grandparents' farm, but yeah, I mean, it's incredibly difficult. There's a USDA study that shows that since 1985, farmers in Arizona have spent more money farming than they've taken in. So more expense than income since 1985. That's crazy. Almost at capacity. There's no business model that works in that system at all. But we still want locally grown produce. My name is Eric Stanford. I own and operate Pivot Produce. I'm weighing out 5 pounds of carrots for the Cup Cafe, and they're super sweet and delicious. Pivot Produce is a distribution network operating under the Food Hub model. I'm purchasing produce and fruits from small farmers in southern Arizona, and I'm distributing their produce to some of the best restaurants in downtown Tucson. Hey, Morgan.
Lettuces, carrots, radishes, spring peas, squashes, pumpkins, gourds, collard greens, mushrooms. The list is ever growing. My name is Anthony Calusi. I'm the executive chef for Hotel Congress, the Cup Cafe. Local produce is extremely important. Food that is easily sourced, is transparent. I understand exactly what goes into it so I can get the most out of it. Honestly, it's a lot of fun because he sends me a message. He says, hey, what do you want? I said, bring everything, bring it all, and I'll take it. He's bridged the gap from farm to table, for sure.
The fava beans? Yeah, they're from Dreamflower Gardens. Yeah, you got it. Thank you for purchasing them. Middleman, liaison, broker, they're all kind of terms that have been thrown around to define what I'm doing. I think middleman suits pretty well. Yeah,
I had this
you
with
went
salad for a wedding.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, you got all the kale this week.
Yes.
And we're good. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. Yep. I've been a chef in Tucson and all over the country for the last 15 years, and I saw a pretty blatant disconnect between the food that I was eating at home, stuff I brought in from the farmer's market, fresh seasonal produce, and the produce that I was working with in most of the restaurants, most of the kitchens that I was working in. The flavor, what that is when you have something in the ground that's nutrient rich. The soil has been cultivated to the point where it's putting as much nutrients as it can into that tomato. It tastes like a tomato, and it smells like a tomato, and it feels like a tomato. But it's the best damn tomato you've ever had.
Feed the chicks at that point.
It's because a farmer grew it and had compassion while they were growing it and thought about the best way to propagate that vegetable. And they, not only in that season, but the 3 seasons before, were planning how that soil is alive and how they've kept it alive. I think what you're tasting is their hard work and their compassion, and in a industrialized food growing system, you're not tasting that. Farmers markets are great, but it's not practical for a farmer to go to 5 farmers markets a week to sustain their business. We're headed to the southwest side of Tucson to the Breckenfeld's family farm. They've been farming this plot of land for something like 32 years. It's a really interesting... When you break it down to the raw core of what we're trying to do, I'm trying to make sure that they're spending more time growing vegetables rather than worrying about where they're going to go, how they're going to sell them, who they're going to market to, do they have to find a new restaurant or market or whatever. Let me take care of that, basically. All right, yeah, let's see what you got going on. And that's what we've been doing. I haven't been out here in a little while. Going out to the farms, physically being there, and going through and tasting crops out of the field and getting the subtle differences. I mean, that's the best part of my week. Let's weigh it all, because they might want to use some of this. Right? It's so sweet. Good. Buttery. How many pounds did you harvest last year?
He's a fellow Wisconsin person. we kind of hit it off right off.
This is all the flour that's what you're eating. That's what.
My name is Don Breckenfeld. Actually, I'm a retired soil scientist with the USDA.
After I retired, I just got crazy with the gardening and took my own advice now, growing my own vegetables. This is the ancestral floodplain of the Santa Cruz, so these soils here are very rich, and they've been in production. It dates back to 6,000 years ago. Very delicious, great for salsa.
I'm loving it. That's great.
Right now, we got a garlic crop that's about ready to come out, and we grow 14 different varieties of garlic. We grow 5 different types of kale, 3 different types of spinach, beets. We're also getting ready to put in tomatoes. We grow 22 different varieties of tomatoes, and then the peppers will be going in here shortly. Yeah, it's hard to pick because I love all of it. It's just part of me. I just love growing things, and I like growing food for people, and we know it's going to go to a good use.
What a lot of farmers have said about me is that I'm bilingual, in that I speak chef. I know that culture, I know the back of the kitchen, I know the mindset that is of a chef. And then I've come to learn what it takes to be a small grower and learned the language of that. Hit it with a little bit of apple cider vinegar. That steams it.
That sounds good. You can talk to Eric, and he understands what you're talking about, you know, the different flavors. You think of garlic as just garlic, and I can tell him, this one's nice and hot, this one has a floral taste, you know, and you can see the wheels turning in his head, how he can cook with this.
Oh, look at the grapevines are popping off already too. All right, I'll be back for grape leaves.
I'm gonna get a little philosophical here, but this is almost like my church. I feel so much togetherness with nature and everything around me, but working out here. I almost feel like the plants can talk to you after a while, and you just start reading what they're saying, and you just take care of them.
Carrots taste more like carrots. Peaches taste more like peaches. The strawberries taste more like strawberries. The flavors are really big, and it's very unexpected, and I think it's just a great side effect of getting local food. It's hard for a farmer to drive to me. It's hard for me to drive to a farm. So he's doing the work for me, and every Wednesday I get a little inventory slip from him. This is what I have, and I said, great, let's bring it on.
Mitch, I just gotta go to the front desk. I got a check waiting up there for me. Might be. Oh, there I am. I see it. I see it. All right. Thank you. See you next week. All right, Tone. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. So I'm not saying that local produce is going to take over the market. We're all going to be eating what's grown in Tucson because we live in a desert. I don't think we could produce enough for 1 million people to sustain here. But I think it's an important thing to work towards. How else can we help? How can we make it more viable to be a farmer in southern Arizona? That's what's important, is making it more viable. What's up, Steve?
Eric's old station wagon has been put to rest, and now Pivot is delivering produce from more than 15 individual growers in a 2012 Ford Transit commercial vehicle. He also started selling direct at 5 Points Farmers Market in Cesar Chavez Park on South Stone every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Nature and environment producer Tony Paniagua's been gathering segments for a new series on plants here in southern Arizona. You can grow them in your own backyard. Some of them you may have heard of, others are quite peculiar. Here's our first from the series, Finding Flora.
There are so many plants that you can grow in Tucson for color and to attract hummingbirds. One that's blooming right now is the CUFI Yahia, which is its scientific name. The common name of this plant is bat-faced CUFI, and if you look closely, you can see why. All of the flower petals and reproductive components of the flower come together to make what looks like a bat face. It's a lover of our desert climate, arid adapted, non-invasive, just a workhorse in a flower garden.
Since opening decades ago, the Arizona Sonora Museum has become one of the top attractions in southern Arizona, where people can learn about the plants and animals of the region. However, it may surprise you that there is another desert museum on the other side of Tucson. It is much younger. It opened in 2013, and it takes a different approach to the Southwest.
Our mission statement is to visualize history through art. And what's important to realize here, and I think sometimes people skip over this, but history and art, you can't separate them. They are intertwined. How do you understand history if you didn't understand the art? And how do you understand the art if you didn't understand the history? I'm Rhonda Smith, and I'm the director of the Tucson Desert Art Museum. We're on the northeast side of Tucson. We have about 20,000 square feet here. We have a large exhibition space for our permanent collection, which highlights a premier collection of Native American textiles. We have basketry, pottery. We have a lot of contemporary art as well as art from the old masters and plein air gurus of the American West. Another contemporary artist that we have a work from is a massive painting entitled Rock of Ages. It took 10 people to get it into the main textile room, and they struggled. It was incredibly heavy, and it's a wonderful work, and Arturo recommends that you sit exactly 22 feet away from that painting to feel like you're in the Grand Canyon. So we hope you'll come in and see it.
I really like when I go into a museum to feel like I'm discovering something or I'm finding a hidden treasure, and I feel that when I came to this museum specifically, having grown up on the east side, so close to it, it was really impressive seeing all these Navajo textiles, really charming exhibits right in my own backyard. This one is something that I've been thinking about for a few years now. It's Desert Hollywood, and for this exhibit we're focusing on different landscapes, southwestern landscapes, and how they've really starred as stars in Hollywood films throughout the last 75, 80 years.
This is the first place that we invite our guests to go in and discover the world of Native American textiles. One of the precepts here is that Spider Woman, who is the deity that the Navajo weavers believe taught them how to weave, says, you know what, the world isn't perfect, and neither should we weave a perfect textile. And so when we observe these great works of art, we look for a disharmony in the textile. Some people would call it a mistake, but I think it's important to call it a disharmony because we're not trying to say that it wasn't intentional. It was very intentionally put there by the weaver to suggest that they were not perfect in some manner. We depend on the cooperative efforts with other museums and historical societies. And this exhibition, for example, Vaquero and Charro, it would not have been possible without the great assistance from the Arizona Historical Society. What this exhibition talks about is a very important period of history where the early horsemen came and they developed certain techniques that, lo and behold, they're even used today with our Western riders and our Western horses. And it even had great influence on our English riders. And so it's a wonderful exhibition for both horsemen and history lovers.
These photographs are of Mexican cowboy culture in Southern California. I became close with two cowboys and foremen at a ranch. One's from Guanajuato and the other's from Michoacan, and they took me around. I showed up at the ranch vegetarian and afraid of horses, and with my friends I changed all of that, and they taught me how to ride. I asked my friend, I'm like, well, when did you start liking a gringo? And he said, when he started asking me about horses. I know that I learned so much, and then I hope that you can have the same kind of curiosity. If this isn't your culture, maybe more intrigue or a sense of better understanding.
Our founder is a gentleman who started coming to Tucson over 50 years ago, and his name is James E. Conley Jr. And one thing he did was 35 years ago, he started a magazine called Tucson Lifestyle. And he started it actually in the garage of his home. And today, that magazine is still here, and we provide the local community with the very best, we hope, of Tucson lifestyle. He has been collecting art his entire life, and was just fascinated by this region.
Never been in Tucson and never been in the gallery, but I'm so glad I came. It's a long way out of downtown, but it's just stupendous. I've just thoroughly enjoyed myself.
We've enjoyed it immensely. The Navajo weavings are quite remarkable, and the understanding a bit of the legend and the methodology behind it is a great appreciation for that culture. It's a fairly large presentation, and I wasn't expecting that, and the quality is really delightful.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.